So if you're watching this video, chances are you're probably wanting to increase the amount of time you're reading with your children, or at least start reading with your children. Maybe it's picture books, maybe it's chapter books, whatever it is. Or you might just be watching this video because you follow along on my channel and you're like, wait a second, I remember she said she didn't love chapter books, but she has chosen a history course that is nothing but chapter book read alouds. Like what happened? What is going on? So I just kind of want to tell like where I have transformed in the past years, and just kind of give encouragement and just maybe some tips if you are looking for, you want to read more to your kids, but it's just not your favorite thing to do. It's just not something that you like. Maybe here's some tips. And you may have tried these already, and that's fine if you have. I'm not saying that they're going to be like, if you do this, you're going to love it and it's going to be glorious or anything like that. It's just something that I did that I felt like worked for me and my family. So I thought I'd share. Let me just start off by saying I actually made a video a year or two ago, and I was saying it was one of my actually more popular videos. It was talking about things I don't do in my homeschool, and one of those was reading chapter books aloud to my kids. I never really loved it. It was never something that I was just like, oh, I can't wait to read a chapter book. It was just something like, oh my goodness, something I dreaded. You cannot be in this homeschool community without hearing of all the other homeschool moms who are just gloriously reading all these books to their children. And for me, I was just like, I don't know, is there something wrong with me? Like, I don't like doing this. So if you were there, like, trust me, I get it. This is not coming from a mom who's just like, yes, this is my favorite thing to do. Like, that was not me at all. So first, don't feel guilty if you don't really love reading aloud to your kids. Like, I'm sure there's a lot of other things that you do with your kids and really enjoy doing. So don't let guilt overtake you. If you don't be reading just out of guilt. So first, I noticed for myself, what we did is, since my kids were little, and I will say I have always read picture books to them, and I have enjoyed that. And I feel like, who doesn't love a good picture book? First, there's pictures, and then second, I like that the story just wraps up all in one. So if you don't love it, well, in probably 5 to 10, maybe 15 minutes, the story's done and the story's ended. So chapter books, I had noticed that like there was a lot of times where if you weren't into this, especially as the parent, it was just dragging and dragging and dragging. Even if the kids loved it, for me to read it out loud, it was just like, can this be done? And so that was one of the reasons I hated chapter books for so long. I think my first mistake was I just would pick random books that just, I don't even know, like they were not in my interest. They were long. They just were not a good fit. And so I think that was my mistake. Like I said, I did picture books. So if you're not reading at all to your children, start at picture books. Whether they're historical fiction picture books, whether they're just fun picture books, whatever it is, whether it's a series that you like, maybe from your childhood, like the Berenstain Bears or Magic School Bus or something like that, scientific picture books, start there. If you're already there and you're like wanting to incorporate more chapter books, I would start with short books, in books that you would have an interest in. Not again that it's all about you, but if you're really not into this, your chances are you're not going to want to pick the book up and read it. You'll delay it, and then the book will take 3 months to read, and you're just going to it drags out, and then the storyline drags out, and I don't know. That's just what I noticed for myself when I picked books that were just like, this is not me. So for example, I chose this book pack that I got from Costco, and it had these random books in it. So they were Newbery Award winner books, so they were good, but they were long. They were not in my interest. So the one was Ella Enchanted, which I love the movie, but this was a very long one. I'm not into fantasy, and although my girls do and they love it, that would have been one that they could have just read on their own. Just not my cup of tea at all. I don't love fantasy. So I know I'm not going to read aloud fantasy books to my kids. They can read those for themselves, and they do. They read a lot. So I feel like I'm giving a lot of points in one. First, start with small books. Start with books that you would be interested in, even if it's not like the most exciting topic. But if you know you don't love fantasy, for example, then stay away from that. It might take a couple books. It might be like, wait a second, I thought this would be okay, and then it was kind of long to get through, and I realized, oh, this genre is not for me. It might take a couple of books of trial and error. So I wouldn't just like give up after 1 or 2 books or anything. Like, keep at it, keep going, but kind of you'll be able to kind of navigate and see which are your style more, and your children's style as well. And the reason I'm saying you is because, and not your children, and I don't want the video to come across like it's all about what us. If I left it up to my children, all they would read would be like, again, unicorn books, spy books, fantasy, princess adventure type book. Like, they would only have their one genre. And so by me reading chapter books that they would not choose on their own has expanded their horizons, and they have found, oh wait, I really do like these types of books, and books that were recommended by their book club that they, again, would not have chosen, that may not be their favorite, but it has allowed them to say, oh wait, okay, wait, I do like this type. So that is another reason why I say you be the one who is selecting it for the most part, only because they might shut down a lot of different book ideas. And so it's up to us to kind of introduce different types of books to them. Reading books that were classics. So, and not just they have the Newbery Award stamp on them. I mean, true classics. And if you're wondering like, where is that? Where can I find those? I know that the Read Aloud Revival has a lot of resources that she uses. Sunlight's curriculum has a lot of resources. If you go on their website, it will show readers and it will show different age groups. And Sunlight has a lot of readers there that you can choose from. And that's where I started to. And when I started to use their recommendations, that's when I was like, oh, okay, got into stories that were much more enjoyable for not only myself to read to my kids, but my kids really enjoyed them a lot more too. So reading from books that are recommended by people who know what they're doing, like I'm not a book connoisseur. You're gonna probably have a lot more success than just randomly picking up something at Costco or on thrift books, right? So get recommended books. The next thing that you can do, if that's too much of a jump from picture books to chapter books, try doing audiobooks. Now, audiobooks, some people love them, some people hate them. We really like them. I will put them on if we have like a long car trip or something like that, or even like 20-30 minutes, I'll put on audiobooks. And again, don't have the chapter books be 6 hours, because there's some audiobooks that are 6, 7, 8 hours long. And that's too much. It's too much to dip into. Start with a shorter one that's maybe like 2 hours or something like that, and then go from there. And then audiobooks are really good just because like sometimes as the mom, as homeschoolers, we are reading so much other resources to our children. Like your voice gets tired and you're just like, I cannot read another thing to my child. So audiobooks are good because it just kind of lets them listen to somebody else's voice besides yours, and it gives you a break, and you can either listen to it or not. A lot of the times when we're listening to audiobooks in the car, like I'll casually listen, but a lot of times I kind of zone out, but they're the ones listening. And so it's been really good. They enjoy audiobooks. In fact, we listened to this one. It was a little bit longer one, Mr. Lemoncello's Library, but it introduced both of my girls to that whole series, and they devoured that whole series this spring. So audiobooks are really good. They can introduce, especially if you don't want to read something that's so long, you can do audiobooks that are shorter, which I would recommend starting with, and then work your way up to a little bit longer ones if that's something that you and or your kids enjoy. And then another thing, set like a page limit or a timer. So, hey, of this book, I'm gonna read 10 pages a day. When I get done these 10 pages, that's it. And then, or you read it, set a timer. I'm setting my timer for 10 minutes. And when the timer is over, 10 minutes is up, we will be done. Now, you might find that your kids are begging to read more, or you might find, hey, actually, I can read a couple more minutes, but you have permission to give yourself and your kids know, okay, when the timer is up for 10 minutes, that's it. So I think that would be really helpful, because you kind of have in the back of your mind, okay, I'm not gonna be reading for an hour. I can read this for 10 minutes. Either I read this quote or I heard this quote somewhere that if you just read for 10 minutes every other day, not even every day, every other day for 10 minutes a day, so set that timer for 10 minutes, you will read 30 hours in 1 year to your children. So you can get a lot of books read in 30 hours. So I found that really encouraging. I'm like, okay, anybody can read for 10 minutes every other day. Next, and this is what I'm doing, I have kind of a group of books that we're getting, or that I have, and of ones that I do want to read aloud to my kids. I'm having them choose, like, okay, these are the books, we are reading them, but you get to choose, so my kids are 6th grade, 4th grade, and 2nd grade. And so they're gonna each take turns choosing, and then I'm gonna choose one, because there's some in that stack that they probably will never choose. And so we all get turns. So maybe having your children, like, you take a stack of books that you wouldn't mind listening to or reading or whatever, and then they choose from there. It's not just you dictating what's going to be read, it's they have some say so and some choice in the matter as well. And I have honestly found a lot of times that my girls were like, oh, we don't want to read this one. And then as we read it, they were actually really into it. So just keep that in mind too. It may be something that you get a little bit of pushback on at first, but then they enjoy it, or they just might not enjoy it. And that's okay too, because in life, not everything you do or read or watch, or, every job or everything is going to be super enjoyable. Life isn't always about all of our desires and all of our wants. Some things you're just going to have to get through. So we've read books where 2 of my kids liked it and 1 didn't, and that was okay too. And again, I've read books where I'm like, this is so not interesting, but I pushed through it because they really enjoyed it. But I would say try to get books, for the most part, which is obvious, that will hopefully appease a large crowd. And another thing that I did that was really good was I chose books that were based on movies, so that way when we got to the end of the book, they watched the movie, or we all watched the movie, as kind of like, we liked to compare, and most of the time we found that we did like the book better. Just because there's always more detail and things like that, or sometimes they completely, twist the book around and make the movie completely different. So we were able to kind of compare and contrast, but it gave us something to look forward to. Like, okay, when we finish this one, we will watch the movie. Another thing I did was get abridged versions of classics. So they have so many of those, like the Classic Starts has some. We have some that I just got at Michael's a couple years ago. It was literally $1 for like Black Beauty, Moby Dick, The Secret Garden. They have so many classic ones. So we read Black Beauty, and like I said, it was abridged. So it was much shorter, much easier to read and go through, but it was still classic. This is when I still really hated doing read aloud, chapter book read alouds, that is. And but by the end, I found myself crying. And then as a Christian, this is just something that I prayed about. Now, this isn't something that I was pleading and begging God, please give me this desire. But it is something that I did pray about, when I thought about it. And so I think that has definitely has helped increase my desire to read chapter books with my kids. I made our history the past couple years. We have done kind of geography, and then this year history with picture books. And then gradually I did a mix of picture books and chapter books in this history course. And so we got to do both. And so seeing that kind of was like a stair step into, because even before this year, and I've been homeschooling for 6 years, before this year, I would not have done a whole chapter book curriculum. I would not have done that, but I feel like I baby stepped my way into it, and that was really helpful too. So I did picture books for a couple years, and then this past year I added in chapter books along with the picture books, and then next year we'll just be doing the chapter books for our history, for our Sunlight history. And I think that has been really helpful too. And if you never get past picture books, that's okay. Really, it's okay. Your children will be okay. My mom never read, I don't think my mom ever read a book to me. Us 90s kids, do you remember your parents reading to you? I really don't. And I turned out okay. I love my mom. She's my best friend. I love my parents. We're okay. So if you don't do this, please don't let other homeschoolers make you feel guilty or bad, or that you're a bad parent. You're not. It's okay. So hopefully you found this helpful. I am sure I am, missing some steps, or I haven't given a complete overview on this. There's many more experts out there than I am. I do not claim to be a book loving expert or anything like that. This is coming from someone who didn't love it, who has kind of evolved over the past year or two, and how I am enjoying it much more now. If you have any recommendations or like things that you did to help you enjoy chapter book reading, please leave them below in the comments so that it will help others, because I know a lot of people, it's not their favorite thing to do. And so a lot of people do struggle with that. So put in your comment down below of what you did to help you enjoy chapter book reading.